Welcome to Rock Shop Talk. Our show talks best practices, fun anecdotes, and the latest cutting-edge technology in our field to kick your screen printing gears into hyperdrive. Today's episode features the topic of professional packaging, and we're joined by our special guests, Chris Blakeslee and Ken Seidl of Bella+Canvas, and Rob Welch of ROQ US. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be right back.
So I want to welcome everybody to Rock Shop Talk. Today we are going to be talking about professional packaging, folding, operations, a lot of really cool topics when it comes to getting finished goods out the door. We are joined today with our very special guests, Chris Blakeslee and Ken Seidl of Bella+Canvas. Alongside of us here is also Rob Welch from ROQ US. I am Ross Hunter, president of ROQ US. And of course, we are joined by Mr. Merrill Capps, our creative director. How's it going, everyone?
Hello.
Awesome. Very well. Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for joining us. This will be a really cool episode. It's an honor to have you guys here. Want to kind of kick off with just some updates on our end. We are in the process of getting this elusive tour bus wrapped. We're actually just talking how fun it's going to be to do one of these shows from the road. We were talking about like Times Square or something really cool. Bring the studio somewhere else, to another shop, to another city. So we are excited about that. Hopefully, this lovely virus will allow us to get out and actually do some things. I saw Restaurant Impossible is actually doing this. So that's how they're filming now. Robert Irvine got a tour bus and he's revisiting all of the restaurants that have been on the show, and they're able to do good 6-foot distancing and stuff. So I'm hoping to kind of follow what they've got going on with our tour bus, so we can get out and see.
Great idea.
Yeah, it'll be really, really, really fun. Other than that, we don't have a whole lot going on. This whole month, we've been talking, folding lines, and that's what this episode's going to cover. So I'm really excited to kind of put it all together with our special guests here, and we'll dive in. So I want to thank you guys again for being here. Start off with a question, just shoot this off. I know, Ken, you've got a very long background in logistics, correct?
Correct. Yeah, 17 years at UPS, working with major Fortune 1000 companies with global logistics.
That's awesome. And Chris, you're the president over at Bella, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you've been building this monster from the ground up and going through all these big changes with operations and logistics and streamlining the operations. So this will be really cool. I mean, in you guys' opinion, what makes packaging and finishing so crucial? And is this like a missed opportunity in a lot of businesses, within our space that you guys see?
Yeah, I'll maybe go first. Excuse me. We in our business, we've had a couple of really interesting, I would say, transformations over the past year. We decided we had been talking for several years about Bella+Canvas going further into traditional retail. And we knew that there was a lot of retail interest in the brand because of unique visits to our website on a monthly basis, which most of the time people never logged into the website. So we knew they were looking, they were shopping, they were having an experience or getting inspiration. So we knew that there was a lot of consumer interest that got created through the promotional products market as people got exposed to the brand. We decided to launch the brand direct-to-consumer retail, a curated assortment, in October of 19. And it immediately started to do incredibly well. And then we did a deal with Nordstrom, which kicked off actually right at the beginning of the pandemic. So they were taking delivery on product in March, which we thought was going to become very unfortunate timing. But in fact, we did really well. We had some of the top sellers in our category through their website. So all of a sudden we had
awesome.
a lot of new demand in the business, a lot of new requirements in the business. And of course, we did it because by having higher price points at retail, consumer affinity for the brand, it helps to create pull-through demand in our core channel, the promotional products market. But all of a sudden, we're dealing with packaging, with having to fold product, having to put stickers on product, having to just do things that we don't normally do. And then, so that was happening in the business. And then simultaneously, the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden, we end up big time in the mask business. We still believe that we're on unit volume, probably the largest fabric mask manufacturer in the world. And that brought about new packaging challenges. And so all of a sudden, we went from not thinking much about unique packaging to having to be very efficient at packaging product in the United States. And that's what led us down this path.
Well, that's a lot happening at once too. Congratulations on that partnership with Nordstrom. That's really cool.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
And that's a lot of pivoting though, from an operational standpoint. How did that look for you guys? So, you kind of have all these things, converge on your business at once. How did you tackle, did you basically separate each one of these operational issues out and go one by one? Was there one solution that you were looking for to solve, multiple different problems? How'd you guys approach that?
Yeah, I'll give maybe a top level perspective on it, and then I'll let Ken talk more about what we did. But I think most people who know our brand well know that we're big believers in investing in the U.S. And so unlike many of our competitor brands, we've kept a substantial footprint in our campus in L.A. where Ken and I are now. We have 4 buildings. We have about 1.2 million square feet under roof. At any given day, there could be up to 1,000 people between the warehouse and the production operation here. So we're big believers in investing in the U.S. and using U.S. resources. So when the packaging requirement came at us, when we realized we had to do something, we did what we always try to do, which is figure out how we can use technology to make it possible and to keep the cost at a level where we can do it competitively in the United States. So that led us into this effort of just exploring all of the automated packaging solutions we could. And that led us to the decision to make the investment in the ROQ machine, which has been fantastic. And then I'll let Ken talk a little bit more about what that looked like.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It was 2 different processes, the packaging, the professional packaging of apparel versus masks, and both run chartered waters. So really, we had to kind of pull out the script from college and do our industrial engineering work. It was time and motion studies of what's the best way to package. You're working with marketing to come up with the exact packaging we needed, and then what was the methodology to package masks or apparel most efficiently. And again, it was a combination of looking at manual processes, using the human resources in this area, and then also supplementing that with technology. And the ROQ came into play with that. Actually, with both processes, we were using the ROQ machine specifically for masks, bulk masks, 120 masks in a large quantities, and we were using them also for some of our commercial apparel packaging. But really, it gets down to time and motion studies, quantifying and qualifying the processes, and then crafting the right process to efficiently and effectively package the product, specifically to the product.
So for our listeners out there, I mean, you guys are obviously doing this at an extremely large scale. And a lot of our listeners are, getting into business, early in business, maybe small to mid-size at this point. When they get into, let's maybe back off of the packaging, but what you said was really interesting, into optimizing their business in general. Is that kind of where you would suggest people start, is looking at your business, doing time studies on each facet of your operation, and then trying to understand, where your downfalls are, and then look, I guess, out to the market for things that automate that process? I mean, is that kind of how you guys go through these stages?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. Absolutely. I mean, we sort of looked at it as let's start by seeing how productive our people could be, and in some cases, to your point, and during this whole mask initiative, I mean, getting enough people was one of the biggest challenges, because you're adding hundreds of people, in a short period of time into the operation. But I'm sure that even small to mid-sized businesses, finding good people is not always easy, and so. But what we did was we said, all right, well, let's use the manual approach. Let's test it. Let's put people on it. and let's see how many packages they can do in a minute. And then you just break it down. And then we said, all right, well, the cost of the person is X. They can do X number or Y number of packages per minute. And you back into the cost of doing a package or the cost per minute of that operation. And then we tested the ROQ. And of course, there was a lot of good data available before it was even here. We went and did some demos at some companies that already had the machines. And we figured out how many it could do per minute. And not surprisingly, it was much less expensive than doing it the manual way. So now you have two operators, at most maybe three, keeping the machine fed with product. So you still are employing people, which is great because we all want to do that, especially in the US. But you're able to be very economical as a business. You're able to keep your costs down, and then you can pass that advantage to some extent to your customers and or make higher margin. And it's just a better business.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you guys probably had the barriers too, when you're bringing in hundreds of people with the pandemic happening, and we're obviously having to concern with social distancing and mask wearing and, protection, that's probably was a big thing that you guys had to contemplate as well, I'm guessing, at least right now. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we designed our shop floor, it had to take all those things in consideration. Are people 6 feet from each other at least, and not just side to side, front to back? So we really took over a lot of one of the warehouses for packaging and set it up properly so people don't get sick.
That's awesome. And so the equipment kind of takes away from that too, which is nice.
Yes.
So kind of switching into the branding and marketing, part of packaging. I mean, and maybe we could use Nordstrom as an example here. What do you guys see like that role in being like, how important is that to your business in terms of what that package looks like, what they're getting in that finished product that's going to the consumer, and what kind of thought goes into that from a branding standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I'll maybe start the discussion just talking about a trend that we see in the industry that we certainly have seen over the past couple of months. But we know that the pandemic obviously forced a much higher rate of digital penetration in all things retail. And I read a study recently that suggested that in the duration of the pandemic, the increase in retail as a percentage, or increase of digital commerce as a percentage of total retail, that increase was equivalent to the prior 9 years combined. So we see this dramatic increase. That has brought a lot of new demand into our core industry because customers discovered decorated product. And I think it just created a closer connection between, our promotional products market and retail. But when you're in retail, packaging and folding are a big deal because the retailer wants to be able to take the product right out of the box and put it right on the shelf. So if it needs to have a barcode on each item, then that barcode's got to be on there already. If it needs to be in a poly bag, that has to be done. And so you want to deliver that to the retailer. It's a hard requirement whether you want to do it or not to participate. And I think that's an opportunity for people in the industry. But then all the little nuances, because the retailer wants the sticker in exactly the right place, you still want to have your branding on it. So what we try to do is we take those requirements and then say, well, how can we bring forward the Bella+Canvas brand most effectively within those retailers' requirements, do the design on the label or the package or whatever it is, and then put that into production.
When you guys are kind of penetrating this new market too, with a higher retail rate going direct to consumer, I'm assuming these are with blank goods, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So it's got to have that kind of flair, right, that someone gets. I mean, it's interesting though too, because fashion has kind of shifted. I know myself, I was a screen printer for 12 years. I owned a company out in LA, and I don't think I've worn a decorated shirt for a very long time. I mean, it seems like fashion trends have definitely gone to, the blank shirt, the cool cut, different types of sleeves, different types of collars, and, toss on a nice sport coat and, you're good to rock and roll with the pair of jeans. I think Richard Branson, I want to say, kind of made that, sort of a fashion statement for the business person. So that packaging, when they get it, I'm assuming it's part of that experience too, that, they're getting this very nice, non-decorated good, and it's got to feel special in some kind of way and really make that brand stand out.
Sure. But I think too, once you end up in a retail application, then it's also about how do you keep brand consistency as well. So all of the branding that we've already done, the way that we have our logo, the fonts, all those aspects have to be incorporated into that branding. And then you have to be able to efficiently get that on the product.
Absolutely.
For sure. I have a quick question for these gentlemen. Ross, from an operations standpoint, can you tell us some key logistics about when it comes to packaging, like what businesses should strive for in selecting packaging systems and overall workflows in general?
Sure. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. With the ROQ, again, a lot of it went down to what are the benefits, qualitative benefits and quantitative benefits of automation. So let's first talk about the quantitative benefits. Well, first of all, is it more efficient? Does it reduce headcount? Does it enhance productivity? In the case of the ROQ specifically, it enhanced our ability to package masks or apparel by a factor of 3. So suddenly we were able to produce more 3 times as fast as we could with our optimal human system. The other is quantitatively. So we looked at the end results, because when you use automation, you have to put into the decision-making model, what is the end product? Consistency. When we use the automation as opposed to the human process, everything was uniform. The way the shirt was folded, the way the shirt was put into the pack, and the way the pack was sealed. When you do it with a non-automated process, those factors are varied. So quantitatively, and you do the math, when you get time is money, and obviously headcount is money. So you apply that to the cost of the technology, and the ROQ really paid for itself very quickly.
Well, the other thing I would say that I personally liked about the machine is we looked at, I think, every packaging machine that was available in the market. And one of the things, for people who have been around production and operations, machinery, as many of the viewers we know certainly have and continue to be on a daily basis, that the more complexity there is in something that is, something that has a machine aspect, the more chance there's going to be failure. The ROQ machine, the technology, the way that it works, when you really get underneath the hood, it is very intelligently simple. And so when we looked at it, we're thinking, the probability of the machine having a high percentage of uptime, of it working well, we just felt a lot better about the engineering in the piece of machinery itself.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very intuitive. And that's another factor that has to go into your decision-making of technology. Is it something that you have to have just 1 or 2 people that are experts in that? Or is this a technology that gets several people and you can cross-train on that piece?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Well, cool, guys. We're going to jump into a quick commercial break, and we will be right back to talk more packaging and automation logistics.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claire with Bella+Canvas. So what does it take to shift from making t-shirts to face masks literally overnight? We've made investments at every stage of our production to make masks as quickly as possible, making 20 million a day. Come take a look at our production to see what it takes. First, it takes innovative technology at every stage of our manufacturing process. We were already in a great position to service the non-medical face mask need thanks to owning and operating the largest cutting facility in North America. That was the easy part. How to package all these masks? Now that was the hard part. Before this pandemic started, we were shipping bulk ordered t-shirt boxes for wholesale. We needed an automated solution that would help us polybag every item. So back in February, we invested in the ROQ pack machine. The ROQ pack couldn't have come at a better time. Our state-of-the-art cutting technology already allowed us to make masks without human touch. Now we just needed a solution to help us package the mask in a fast and sanitary way. With its high technology advances, it has the capability to package up to 1,200 pieces an hour. That's one piece packaged every 3 seconds, working much faster than using manual labor, allowing us to get face masks out with better lead time. In addition to impeccable speed, this machine functions on minimal human touch, keeping our employees and you safe while packaging our non-medical face masks. With every step of this process, we have thoughtfully prioritized your safety. By using machines like our laser-guided fabric cutters and our human touch-free packaging, your safety can be trusted. We're in this for you, and we're in this together.
So I want to welcome everybody back to Rock Shop Talk, your one-stop rock shop where we discuss all things screen printing. Today's episode features professional packaging, and we are joined by our special guests, Chris Blakeslee and Ken Seidl of Bella+Canvas. We got Rob Welch from ROQ US in the house, and of course, our creative director, Mr. Merrill Capps.
Cheers.
Oh, that's a great cup, Merrill.
Oh, thank you. I love it. It's a cow with udders at the bottom.
And the udders are the stand.
That is fancy. That's very nice.
That's good. Yeah, so our viewers know Merrill is an avid coffee mug collector. Sometimes, the kind where he goes to a restaurant and sees a really cool mug and it somehow might disappear off the table.
Look, okay, so you're officially not part of my gang now.
Sorry, I had to out you, dude. I had to out you.
Okay.
The restaurants beware.
We'll keep an eye out for cool mugs.
Thank you, sirs.
So want to kick this back off. We're going to go over to Rob, who is one of our specialists here in ROQ US on the packaging system and actually worked with Bella+Canvas and Ken and Chris to get this system into Bella. And just kind of talk from like an internal side of, the modular system that we have available for everyone, what that really means, and then talk about some of the efficiencies and add-ons and different things that the folding, packing, labeling machine offers. So I'll let you take it over there, man.
Absolutely. So out of everything all the solutions that we offer, I truly believe that the folding solution is the most interesting and the most diverse piece of equipment that we sell.
It's definitely the one that people stop at the trade shows and just stare. I've noticed that. It's like this, beautifully, engineered crazy machine, and you just watch it do all these different things.
There's always at a trade show, probably a dozen times a day, someone will walk up and say, "Oh man, I wish I could get one of these for my laundry room." I can't argue that.
That's what happened to us. That's where we saw it for the first time.
Yeah, it was funny. I remember that actually. So this was in Long Beach back in January, and I'm standing there at the folding line, and I've been having lots of conversations with people. And Chris comes up, and a couple people with him, and he's asking questions about the equipment. I'm answering those questions, and then I look down at his badge, and I see Bella+Canvas, and I remember jokingly saying, like, "Oh, you're Bella+Canvas. Like, how many do you want? You can take this one and get you a couple more. Let's make this happen." But it is really cool. And I think one of the things that really makes it stand out is that modular aspect to it, right? So you could have someone who, right now, and for an example, I was in a shop in LA before COVID, and I went in there and, they had a bunch of presses, they're printing. They had 25 people sitting at these long tables with these flip and folds, folding shirts, sending them down, someone's putting them in the bags, 25 people doing this. And if with one folding line, they would be able to essentially be able to do that with 1 or 2 people and produce twice, 2, 3, 4 times as much output. But the modular aspect of it's really cool because it allows people to, let's say, all they're doing is folding the goods. They're putting them into like a UPS box or something. And it's like, okay, cool. You've got your folding unit here. It's going to alleviate kind of any errors. You're going to get the same folds every time. It's going to look real crisp and nice. And then let's say then they get a client, in a retail space, they need to have, a size label applied to the garments. It's like, okay, cool. Well, we can add that module on now. Now you have your size label. If they then need to package them and bag them, we have not only the clear plastic, which has kind of been the standard for years, but the poly mailer material as well. So realistically, you could have a shop that's doing direct to consumer fulfillment, and they're printing the garment, running on the folding line, folds, labels, packages, puts it into a poly mailer bag, and prints out a UPS shipping label directly onto the bag, and it drops right into the shipping bin, ready to go out the door. You've eliminated so many steps of people needing to be there and human error. And that when you actually see the line do that, all those things in line running, 700 an hour, is breathtaking and it's amazing. And it's going to give you that, consistency and that quality that I think people really have come to expect. And this machine just does that flawlessly.
And I mean, taking it back to Bella on the point of modular, you guys kind of utilize that, I believe, where you've got the folder packer, and we went in because you guys pivoted heavy into mass and we're needing to package, I think, the 120 at a time. And we actually pulled the folding piece off.
Right. That's right.
And you guys were just utilizing the packaging machine for mass. And then when you get back and maybe that changes or your needs shift, we come back, we put the folder back on, and now you're able to do retail for Nordstrom and have that maybe be the case. That's really cool. And I think the biggest thing that people, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, need to understand is the cost of entry is nice, because instead of having to buy one full system totally done for, 170, 80,000 or whatever the case may be, they're able to get started with what their biggest need is at the time. So if they're just needing to fold, like you said, it's like, okay, I can just buy this piece, but it gives them the ability to expand and grow as their business changes and their needs change.
Right. A good analogy would be like a modular synthesizer. Right. I don't know if anyone knows what those are, but they're kind of archaic at this point because people still use them. But the whole idea in that kind of a system is you have all these different modules, and you have this gigantic box, and you put all these modules in it, and you can add to it and take away from it and do as you wish. So the folding line is very much that. So if someone needed to just bag things, they didn't need to fold. Cool. Get your bagger. You're running 1,200 pieces an hour on the bagger. That's awesome. Oh, now we need to fold. Let's add that in. And yeah, it could grow with you, which is unlike any other kind of stuff in this industry where, if you buy a screen printing press, yeah, sure, maybe you can add a head to it, but the press is the press. And this is something that you add what you need when you need it until you've got the full line. And then you're golden. And then, hopefully you grow even more and need 2, 3, 4 more. And I'm happy. And
they call you, right, Rob?
Yeah, I'm happy to help with everybody. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive into a little bit more specifics with Ken and Chris here on, we've talked a lot about the why. We've talked a lot about like what led you up to the decisions and the research and, some of the time studies. But when you guys, get down to it and maybe a little bit more into the nitty gritty for our listeners, how do you guys go about calculating the true ROI? Like in terms of the math, just for people that have never done this before, you've got a time study, you've got X amount of people. Can you kind of walk us through just what that really looks like from a mathematics standpoint and how you arrive at those numbers to make the decisions that you're making?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, so we, obviously being a large business, we have some what I would call benchmarks or standards that we look to, but it's nothing that any business of any size could use. So we tend to think of investments on, as you suggested, a return on investment approach, and what's the return going to be in some period of time. And so, our standard typically is in the range of a 50% return on investment in 12 months if we're going to make a capital expenditure. And so, the math on that's fairly simple. You sort of take the the option of buying. So let's talk about this machine. We're going to buy this machine. It's going to cost us whatever amount of money, $150,000, let's say. And then the alternative is this other approach, the manual approach. How much is that going to cost? So now we have two sort of options to compare. We're going to spend $150,000 for this machine. Let's view that as a 12-month expense versus the manual approach. How many people would it take, and how much is that going to cost us over the next 12 months? And then you do the math to say, okay, what is option A cost versus option B? And that's the way that we look at it. So if we're going to spend $150,000, the benefit of that should be $75,000 of benefit in 12 months if we're going to get a 50% return on that investment. Does that make sense? So you're sort of saying that option A, the automated option, should cost us $75,000 less at least than the manual option over the same period of time, in this case, 12 months. And if the math works out that way, you make the investment. Now, what we know about this solution is it probably, we haven't gone back to do the math, but it probably, has generated a 300 or 400% return, or will, in its first 12 months. It could be even higher than that. But that's the simple math. It's just, and I think every company can do that, to say, I'm going to compare two approaches, and I'm going to look for a 50% return on the automated solution, which I think is, a number that a lot of companies would use, and just run the math. And it's really simple math. And then if the math plays out, make the investment.
And I think that's a really important point. I know, just from being on both sides of the industry for years now, one of the hard things with smaller businesses is, they go into these purchases, like, people know, like, hey, I need something, right? Everything always starts with a need. Just like, you guys pivoted, you got mass, you got a need now, right? There was this packaging concern. And, a lot of folks really look at a price tag. And so, for me personally, and I don't know if you guys, agree with this sentiment or not, but, if you're listening out there, don't get hung up on that price tag. Get hung up on exactly what Chris was just talking about, which is a return on investment. The price tag is always going to be scary. It was for me when I automated my business for the first time. I mean, I remember being at a trade show, getting financing, signing my life away, personally guaranteeing it, on a hope and a prayer. But I had a problem and I had to solve it. And I'm glad I did. I mean, when I went that way, my return was probably within the same thing, first 12 to 18 months. And it was a great investment. But, there was some part of me at that time, being a really young business owner, where I wanted to just not do it. It's like, no, I can make this work. I can make this work. Well, when I did it, my business exploded. I started making more money. I was able to do more. My overhead was down. And I really didn't think about ROI then. I mean, it's just not something that crossed. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was going to say, I think that's one of the things that small business owners, or business owners in general, often confuse investments and expenses, because it's really easy to do. Because you spend money on stuff all the time, and there's just money leaving the business constantly. And I think particularly as businesses are mid-sized to smaller, you have an entrepreneurial owner. It can be very difficult to separate your kind of the way you think about your personal life with expenses and the way you think about your business. And so if we use this example of $150,000, you can spend $150,000 on expenditures that give you no return whatsoever, just money leaving the business. And I think, what people need to think about with these types of solutions is, I'm taking $150,000 of my money and I'm putting it over here. I'm not giving it away. It's not leaving the business. I'm making an investment in this piece of equipment, and that investment is going to return me at least $75,000 in the first year. But what else could you do with your money, where if you put $150,000 somewhere, put it in the stock market, and guarantee that 150 is going to make you 75 in the first 12 months? And that, I think, is the shift in psychology. It is moving money into an investment. It's not an expense in the business.
And that's why most larger companies, and correct me if I'm wrong, but set up like CapEx budgets. So you guys will earmark a certain amount of investment money per year to automate, to change, to basically invest back into your operations to ensure that you're most profitable. How do you guys determine what those budgets look like? I mean, without getting into too much detail about Bella specifically, but just kind of a broad explanation. What goes into creating those? Is it a problem statement that you end a year with? Is it, we know we need to do this in the future? Is it more of an entrepreneurial thought to get to that budget? How do you get there?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point where it's very much a part of the overall budgeting process. And so, for us, which is probably not different than most companies, it starts with a forecast for the business's growth for the year. So what do we believe we can grow the business over the next 12 months? And, and we look at capital expenditures several years into the future, because in many cases, when it's production related, it takes a while to get it implemented. So you can't just think 12 months forward. But it starts with how much do we think the business can grow? And then what investment in production capacity is going to be necessary to support that growth. So the sales plan drives it. Then we say, how much capacity do we have to build in order to make that work? And then at that point, how much equipment? What does that equipment cost? And then that creates the budget for capital spent in the business. So it's part of a big overall budgeting process.
And that's something that any small business can do too. I mean, I guess I used to always think of it as my savings account. It's like, what am I putting back, for next year to be able to grow? And I think it starts there and, I guess matures into a much more complex set of thoughts, obviously. So that's really cool.
That's
Thanks
right.
for sharing that.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's cruise into our next commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get into what is shifting in our industry and how that's relating to people's operations, and get some really cool feedback from Bella to kind of piggyback off of last episode, I shouldn't say last week, it was 2 weeks ago, but our last episode, just really talking about where this industry is going and where we see it headed. So we will be right back.
Ease yourself into automation with the ROQ US folding, packaging, and labeling modular system. All of our pre-shipment systems may be purchased together or individually. The versatility of the modular system empowers you to build your premier packaging, folding, and labeling solution one step at a time. For these and other expert solutions, please visit ROQ US or call 187-ROCKET now. That's 877-674-8669.
So I want to welcome everybody back to Rock Shop Talk, your one-stop rock shop where we discuss all things screen printing. Today we are talking professional packaging, and we are joined by our special guests, Chris Blakeslee and Ken Seidl of Bella+Canvas, and our own Rob Welch from ROQ US, and of course our creative producer, Mr. Merrill Capps. So I want to dive back in and kind of shift gears. We'll continue to talk a little bit, bring some packaging and stuff into this conversation. But while I have you guys, it'd be great to talk about what is going on with our industry. I mean, how it's shifting. We discussed this on our last episode a little bit with Ryan from Ryanet, and we talked a lot about digital shift. We talked a lot about consumer buying habits, obviously changing to online, and how that's affecting, obviously our printers. It's definitely making changes to our apparel manufacturers, such as yourselves. So can you guys kind of talk about what you're seeing in terms of the industry shift, what you've seen from your side, and what that looks like for you?
Yeah, sure. I'll start and then I'll let Ken go. We see a couple of big things, and we've been doing some broadcasting recently out to our customers, which we can't go visit them in person like we used to, but about these issues. But one of the biggest issues has been, as we all have experienced, that the pandemic had a huge impact on events, and like nothing we've ever seen in the industry before, much more so than the recession in 2008, 2009, the reduction or elimination of events has had a massive impact on demand through our channel. And we kind of view the basics part of our business, t-shirts and sweatshirts, roughly a 1.5 billion unit business on an annual basis, all in. And we believe that up to a third of those units, so say 500 million units, are sold into events. And in many cases, that product is being given away. So it's the least expensive sort of, t-shirts and sweatshirts that are sold in our industry. Mostly,
this is like for the big, marathon races where everyone gets a t-shirt that participates, or
right, exactly.
giveaways for the Giants game kind of thing, something like that.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly. And so that part of our industry has been obliterated by the pandemic because none of those events are happening. And even when they come back with social distancing, fewer attendees just based upon people's comfort levels, the profits of those activities are going to be suppressed for a long period of time. And the likelihood that that giveaway product, which is a pure expense line item, continues the way that it used to is pretty unlikely. And so we see that part of the industry getting heavily damaged. It's been heavily damaged, and it will continue to be that way. So that's the bad news. The good news is that at the same time, you have all these people, millions and millions, tens of millions of people now working from home. They're wearing casual clothing. Their companies are trying to stay connected to them because they don't have them at the office. They can't create that team spirit, camaraderie, and all those things. And so really nice, premium, basic, casual items that are decorated with something. Could just be the company's brand name, could be their slogan, could be some aspect of connecting. That business is off the charts. And we're very fortunate that that kind of segment, the premium basic segment, is our segment. And so, we've been a big beneficiary of that trend, but it's a reallocation of unit volume in the industry, and it creates a great opportunity. And what I love about it too is it's more creative. It requires better product. It requires better decorating. And because the customer wants something that it is in fact premium or retail. And then, as we touched on a little while ago, there's been the explosion of digital commerce during this period of time, which I think has brought more customers to our industry and discovering our industry because they've been searching for items, and they're more likely to find it on a website than they were, walking into somebody's shop in the past. So those are two things that are really neat. They're shifting the landscape, but not unlike what we saw with digital commerce getting its acceleration in the past few months. The premium basics category in our industry has probably gotten as much of a boost in the past 3 or 4 months as it plays out now, as it had gotten the 5 prior years. So it's really a place that people should focus. And it's a fun one because it involves, great decoration, great product that I think, everybody enjoys.
Well, it seems like too that, I know from the decorator side of things, digital is obviously just absolutely taken off. And when you talk about, digital, it's an expensive process, expensive machinery, expensive inks, there's a lot involved in it. And so that premium garment is a big piece to that being able to be successful for all this direct to consumer, selling that's happening right now. So I'm sure that that's been a huge, piece of this too, from those larger digital decorators coming in and wanting to print on a premium garment because that's what people are buying. Because we've seen a huge digital explosion here. In ROQ US and obviously just talking to decorators around the country. People are launching web stores. They're getting into it. I, for the first time in my life, bought a t-shirt off of Facebook, actually twice, 2 times. I was sitting at home, I'm browsing, and I'm like, that's cool. And I can apparently win a truck. I don't know if I could actually win the truck, but they said I could win a truck. So I'm like, I like the shirt. That's awesome. And I spent $35 on it. And I want to say it was actually a Bella shirt that came my way. And it was great. So Ken, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I concur. Just to echo the e-commerce, as you look at this pandemic and situations that none of us have ever seen before, the difference between good companies and great companies are, good companies are asking themselves, how can we survive this? Great companies are asking themselves, how can we prosper during these times? And case in point with Bella, I mean, here we have the largest cutting facility in the United States, and to transition that and pivot to make masks, brilliant. Well, even the small businesses can do that. What are the needs now of society that I can now tender to and prosper during these times, as opposed to merely making it. And again, e-commerce, if the small business doesn't have an e-commerce presence, my gosh, no better time now than to do it and to cut out a niche and put your foot into that door, because there's an opportunity there to not just make it, but to prosper.
Absolutely.
But can I jump in real quick, Ross? Yeah,
please.
A separate topic or something that occurred to me. Could we discuss like potential environmental impacts of this collective shift that we're seeing that you may have picked up on so far and projected and that kind of idea?
Yeah, I think that's actually a great question. And I don't know that we fully understand how it will play out. But, what we all know is the reason that really cheap segment of our industry is referred to as the giveaway, throwaway segment of product is that, in fact, many of those items are discarded after they're given, whether it's, whether you get forced by your significant other to clean out your T-shirt drawer and you start throwing that stuff away, or they go into a bucket in the garage because you're going to use it to clean the car. A lot of that product ends up in the garbage. And so there is an environmental impact. The other thing is that in order to keep the costs low on those products, the people who make them, the companies who make them in countries that do not have the highest environmental standards for wastewater, for dyes, and all these different kinds of things. As many people know about us, we choose to dye everything in California because California has the highest wastewater standards in the world. And so it holds us to a high bar. So we do that here. And as a result, it makes sense to do our cutting here, which of course we've automated. And so I think, premium basic product is more environmentally responsible all the way around. And so it's a really good shift. It needed to happen. It needed to kind of get the kick that it got. Unfortunately, it had to be a pretty terrible event that made it happen. But in the long run for our industry, it's going to be a good thing.
Did you guys see this sticking? I mean, it's interesting for me, I guess, from, I always think to the consumer habits. So, our end users out there that are buying a decorated shirt or a blank shirt. I know for me, I can only speak personally, but I had never used Amazon until this pandemic happened. My wife does. I'm one of those people. I love to go in and feel something and then get that immediate, like, here's my money. Now I can take my thing and, use it. And I'll be honest, after I started doing online buying, I'm kind of addicted to it. It is a lot easier. I mean, do you guys see this, and I guess this is really a personal opinion, but just as something that's really going to stick with the fabric of our consumers moving out of this pandemic? I mean, I know you said there's a long tail from the financial impact for the event spaces and sports and, all the things like that. But do you guys really kind of foresee this? Does that change the way that you guys are thinking about, moving forward as a company?
Yeah, totally. I think that based upon any number of things you could read before the pandemic about certain types of businesses that were, kind of the lagging ones around digital commerce, apparel was one of those, because to your point, a lot of people liked still to go into a store, touch something, feel it, try it on. And so it was one of the segments that was kind of hanging on to brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. And then this happened and pushed all of those people into having to purchase digitally. And I think that what they found is what you found. They had a great experience. They found out that the companies they bought from have great return policies, easy returns. Many, brands now include the return label in the box. So all you have to do is pull the sticker off if you want to return it, throw it in the box. And so I think people discovered that it's actually really great. And why go back at that point? And then there's going to be the lagging issue of, people just not being comfortable in small spaces with lots of other individuals. Do they really want to go into a store? And that'll hang on for a while too. So we see this as a long-term, impact. We think the work from home issue is also going to hang for, indefinitely at this point. A lot of people are never going back to an office full time. And so that's going to change the dress code situation and more people wearing basic product more frequently. So some really, really cool things. And I think, again, it was a terrible event. It continues to be terrible.
Absolutely.
But for our industry, I think it's going to play out long term to bring many really great benefits. But back to Ken's point, for companies that innovate and companies that do the right thing to position themselves to take advantage of the benefits that will come from this whole thing. And I'm sure Ken's got some.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, speaking with a lot of my friends that have online retail businesses, not only are their sales up to unprecedented numbers, new clients, new users are up to unprecedented numbers. So again, here's an opportunity to have fresh, new buyers. Now, how do we retain those buyers? And what are some of the creative things we can do so they don't gravitate back to brick and mortar? They maintain in our store, our virtual store, for the future. So here's some great opportunities to not just, again, survive, but to thrive now and into the future.
Absolutely. It's interesting too. I mean, the margin difference between, shifting your business to an online store, creating your own product, creating your own line, and from a decorator standpoint, and using myself again as an example. I mean, I remember, printing, and I made anywhere, brokered 50 cents a print to, maybe $2-3 if I was selling something internally. But, with people that are pivoting this online space, I mean, they can start to realize, 600-700% markups, and completely change the scope of their business. We've seen a lot of folks even move out of big cities. They've taken their screen printing shops, they've pivoted into a more retail, type situation. They get out of the big city, they go rural, they put their shop on their land that they now just bought. And they're printing less, they're hanging out with their family more, and they're actually making more money than, they were in that past life. So like you guys said, a very positive thing for people that are able to make those moves and be creative and inventive and get into something else.
Yeah, it's really insightful.
So kind of going back to packaging, I'm just curious if you guys have any funny horror stories, just some, crazy thing through all these pivots and all these things that you've had to do, getting stuff out the door. I know you guys pivoted and literally on a dime. Do you have anything entertaining to share with our audience about any of that?
Well, I have to say, probably my funniest experience, it was fun too for me, not so much for Ken, maybe in the middle of it. But when before the machine arrived, we're packaging these, the masks in these bundles of 120, using manual sealers, because that's what we could get a lot of in a very short period of time. And so, imagine an operation where you've got this stack of masks and you're sliding it into a bag and using these manual sealers. And we literally had hundreds of these sealers instantaneously with hundreds of people. And Ken was setting up that operation. And one week I wasn't here. I was back in Chicago at home, and I get a call at midnight from Ken, who is losing it, literally losing it, because he couldn't find enough plugs to plug all these sealers into. And so he's got them all plugged into one wall, huge fire hazard. It's tripping the breaker, so the sealers aren't working. He can't get the mask back.
It was nuts.
And he calls in this, has this nervous breakdown with me on the phone. And I let him go through his whole diatribe. And then I said, Ken, what do you want me to do about it? I'm 2,000 miles away, man. Figure it out. And then you worked all night that night.
I worked all night. It was a 36-hour day. I was seeing monkeys, and it was just hallucinating. It was one of the lowest points of my life. And I appreciate you sharing that, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. But it made a great point around automation, because
and electrical needs. Yeah, that's also
that's for sure.
It was like the Christmas story. Remember when he was putting all those plugs in and the thing was zapping and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Picture that with a couple hundred people working. And I was like, oh my God, it's midnight, and it was overwhelming.
I can imagine how fun that would have been if the fire marshal walked in that night, huh? With all the easy chain extension cords and.
Yeah, well, that's when you see Ken off the side of the building.
So, I think I forgot one important element of this story is that the next morning was the morning that you showed up on our daily production call with no shirt on.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. Again, just because of sleep deprivation, wasn't all there.
He turned his camera on in a call. No one has their camera on, and there he is in his hotel with no shirt on.
So there was my career. Great.
You took the whole Zoom concept to the next level, Ken. I mean, most people wear their boxers, but put on the shirt.
Hold on to, baby. All in or nothing. There are still some women that are in therapy as a result of that, I believe. But
yeah, not just women.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Say let me.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining us today. We're going to wrap up. I wanted to give you guys the opportunity for those of our listeners out there. I'm sure everyone knows, and I hope they all do know about Bella+Canvas, but where can they find you guys? A, website, B, do you have some social hashtags people can follow, check out what you're doing? I know you guys have been doing a lot of live updates. You put on some seminars for some folks in the industry. So I want to give you a chance to talk about any of that and let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I think the greatest destination for sort of all things Bella+Canvas is Bella+Canvas.com, and find links obviously to all of our social channels. And we're really trying to pivot, like most businesses in this, around the way that we interact with customers. And we've been making heavy investments in education through our fashion apparel masterclass to help teach customers better ways to do business, how to strike opportunity. We just did a few weeks ago our first live broadcast to the industry. And we're going to be doing those live virtual events every month moving forward. And we're going to pick a topic, usually driven by what the audience wants to know about. So the next one is coming up in the next couple of weeks, is going to be focused on fleece and the transition to fashion fleece products that's occurring in the industry. And so, Bella+Canvas.com is the place to go. We put everything there, and we look forward to interacting with them as we go forward and doing it, as virtually as we can.
That's awesome. And I know you guys provide a lot of printing tips on your garments. I mean, you guys have a pretty big resource library there. So for those folks listening that have never been to the website, that are maybe just getting their Bella+Canvas apparel through third-party vendors, definitely go check out their website, because there's a lot of tips, tricks on what you're out there doing, decorating on these garments. So again, Ken and Chris, I really, really appreciate you guys joining us today, taking times out of your busy schedule to be here. Rob, thank you as well, sir. And Mr. Merrill, a pleasure as always. So I want to thank everyone out there for listening, and rock on.
Tremendous thanks to our special guests, Chris Blakeslee and Ken Seidl of Bella+Canvas, and Rob Welch of ROQ US for participating today. As always, thank you for spending time with us this week. Tune in at your convenience wherever you listen to your podcast by searching ROQ Shop Talk. That's ROQ Shop Talk. On our next show, we'll feature the ROQ Fit. If you'd like to request to be on the show, please visit roq.us/ROQ Shop Talk. If you found today's episode helpful, the greatest accolade we could ask for is for you to recommend it to a friend who you think may find it helpful as well. Please like, share, and subscribe on social media. Until next time, rockers, press onward.